Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Maria from Maria Moon Music. We're a charity that is focusing on music in an alternative and informal setting. So really directed to parents, carers, childminders, nannies, and educators in early years. So I'm here to help you make sense of informal music theories and music approaches before children enter primary and a little bit after as well, and to talk a little bit about our own methodology and approach. So we are very focused on reimagining the way that we conduct early years music sessions. And that means to give the child a brain, a musical brain, and the musicianship that they can carry through when they grow up. So this is ideal for you if you are invested in that process and you understand how important it is and what's at stake. I'm not going to talk extensively about myself. I'm on LinkedIn, and you can welcome to visit my pages and look at my trajectory in the educational sector. I've been 25 years in music learning and teaching. I started singing when I was just 3 years old in Portugal to foreign music in the radio, which was unusual because I had no foreign experience and any other language apart from my own native language of Portuguese. And then from there, I evolved from music lessons at the age of 14 and singing, and of course, specialization in choir and voice. So my main instrument is the voice. I'm also qualified piano and a grade taken from ABRSM. And of course, I've got other qualifications that are very helpful when you come to early years because they give you a fuller understanding of the whole trajectory from that age all the way to becoming an adult and becoming musical and creative and being able to improvise and do my own compositions. So I've learned my craft across the years, more recently with the MLT. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm here to give you a really good understanding of the musical landscape for early years and make sense of what Kodaly does and Orff and Susuki practices and Dalcroze, because these are not always clear. And if you are a primary education person to your child or group of children or in a nursery, this will be fantastic for you because I think you'll get a lot of value from this video. So I developed an approach within Marie Moon Music. We're based near Southend, but I obviously train and worked across digital online, so there's no limits to what we can do. I want you to be aware of our own monomodal learning methodology and approach. But for now, if you are homeschooling your son or daughter, or your music educator, or you are a childminder, you're in charge of someone's education in early years, this is definitely for you. So what are the options out there? When we look at babies, so from birth to year 5 when they enter school, I mean, you can either invest in lessons, which obviously too soon for babies, or you can wait for children to get to primary school or even at 4 years of age to begin what we call formal music training through an instrument. Or you can, in the meantime, expose your child to the right environment. And what I mean by that is, what are the options out there? We have a lot of franchises, as you can see, promoting music with lots of groups of people, and not always are they trained and experienced classroom teachers like I've been for about 7 years in Dubai and in international schools in British curriculum, or choir lead, or working for the Opera House like I did. So these people will have access to your child. Maybe it's not the best option, but we'll see why and what are the options for you to decide and make the right choices. So what are the choices and why are they so important? So I'll take you back to Dalcroze, because eurythmics, as the name suggests, is about using the body to express rhythmic patterns and sequences. And it was kind of an holistic music educational approach, because until the point of the 1900s, people with money and with ability to pay would hire an educator to come to the house, teach music, instrumental, singing, repertoire, reading and writing music, etc. But Dalcroze changed all that. So he was Swiss German, and his language was mainly French and German. And he taught that children could express themselves rhythmically and creatively to music using their body. So expression through movement, and that was the signature element of Dalcroze. And what that means is a lot of people in schools and projects love Dalcroze because it was always turned to the stage, so turned to the performance aspect of it, of creating and using the body. So I'm not going to go in too deep about it. I just want to show you the overview of Dalcroze in comparison to others. Then later on, a few decades later, came Orff. Okay, I should put Schulwerk because was the name in German for school work or the work in schools. That, as the name suggests, was created for teachers to teach music in a school setting. So in a formal setting with other children, in obviously large groups of children, and it was developed in Germany during the sort of time of war, and of course integrated a lot of listening, so solfege, movement and speech through improvisation. A little bit later than Orff appeared Kodaly, the Kodaly method, which was developed in Hungary, as you can see from the dates, just as the war was ending, in the period between the transition of the war, and it of course emphasizing a similar approach to Orff. Okay, people argue that it's very different, but the difference between the two is that Kodaly was a Hungarian, and his line in school of thought and musical proficiency was perhaps more turned to literacy, to performances that are more formal, more concentrated on the language and written aspect of music. And then later on in Asia, between Orff and Kodaly, the Suzuki method appeared, which, as the name suggests, is from a violinist, so a virtuoso in Japan, who thought, wait a minute, in Europe, everyone's thinking about movement and improvisation and creativity and stage movement and all this, and a more relaxed approach. What about instruments? So you will see a lot of instrumentation, so early years instrument teaching and learning hinged on the Suzuki method because it was created by an instrumentalist. Nonetheless, the violin, which is quite a challenging instrument, so those are the methods that appeared at the turn of the 19th century into the 20th century. Now, you may ask, but what do they all have in common? All of these methodologies and approaches, okay, even though they were quite different and appeared at different times, they always looked at the child from the age of 3 plus, okay? You will never find a child in a group learning or being exposed to the Dalcroze rhythmics at year 2, the age of 2 or 1, or crawling, or a baby under the age of 6. You'll never see one in Orff, you'll never see one in Kodaly method, you'll never or very rarely see any child using the Suzuki method before the age of 3, because all of these methodologies and theories and approaches were designed for children that can talk, they can walk, they're full of energy, hence these schools of thought and theory, and they are looking to kind of instruct the child to become more social, engaging, to work together in collaboration, right? And to follow the rules, okay? To kind of give the child, okay, this is society now, this is how you need to behave. And that's why these schools of thought and music learning and teaching were created, okay? Now, the challenge is, if you have a child who's not yet 3, what do you do? What do you do and how do you do it? Because none of these methods, and I will have a grid later on, there are articles I've written about this, and there's one particular blog on our website that shows you a grid and shows you all the methodologies and theories, what age they're good and are applicable to, what are the benefits, and what are they lacking. Okay, so I encourage you to have a look at that. It's really informative if you are an educator, music educator, or even a parent. It's really good to know. Now, if all of these methods were for children that are 3 years and above, what happens before that age? So that is a great question, and that's where Edwin Gordon appeared. So Edwin Gordon appeared in the late 60s, 70s, and 80s, and he kind of was a contemporary, and he felt that music was much more valuable than that. Initially, he wasn't turned to education or children's education or early years by that matter, but if he evolved into that role very quickly, and he realized that we were just doing all these activities with children, but no one was measuring what was actually happening in their brain. So, were they being developed rhythmically, tone wise, in terms of pitch and tuning? Could they identify songs and patterns and sequences and syntax? So, how the components of language appear in music, although a lot of people compare music and say that it is a language, which it is, it cannot be taught like a language, okay? And I'll go into another video in more depth about that. But effectively, Edwin Gordon said, wait a minute, from birth to 3 years old, in fact, he defended that from birth to 18 months old was the fastest and richest absorption of learning in music that has ever occurred in our lifetime happens between birth and 18 months of age, and then it peaks at about 24 months or so, and it starts to decelerate because that's why children learn so fast in comparison to adults. They absorbed everything, and therefore he thought, let's put into place a structure of audiation. So that means when we can hear songs and we can hear tunes in our minds without the aid of an external instrument. So audiation, the processes that he uses in his books of acculturation, so starting to babble to the child, chanting without words because language interferes with listening, because the child is looking for the meaning of the words, not the actual components of the listening song, all the structures and components of the song. So he created a music learning theory, or MLT. Now, MLT, and I've worked with this system for nearly 5 years in Dubai, is phenomenal because I can, and I still use it in my singing teachers, as a singing teacher to adults and sometimes teenagers. I use that to measure the aptitude of the person, and you always do it in two realms, the rhythmic realm and the tonal realm. But I won't go into that. So he focused on all that. So he started to create amazing activities, which, funny enough, incorporate a lot of the kind of elements of all the other theories like Orff, Dalcroze, and Kodaly and Suzuki, but he always left the notation of song of music as in a written form to as late as possible into the child's sort of teenage years, rather than the first year of primary, for example, which is what tends to happen. The child has never heard those elements, doesn't know what vocabulary to use, and Jimmy, Timmy, Lily and Emily are supposed to look at a note and say, oh, that sounds like a long do of two beats in a bar, in the key of D major. That's never going to happen because they've never, if they've not been exposed to 3 or 4 years to music and music components, they won't be able to do that well. And this is where we come in. So Edwin Gordon is by far the most complete kind of theorist and learning theory that you will find to promote, nurture, and grow a musical brain. So the musicianship of someone who has been with his method since zero, birth to 3 or 4 years old is doesn't have a, doesn't compare to someone who's never have studied with that kind of method. And of course, he used the movable do, the movable la, so major, minor. And by the time the child reaches the primary years, they have the aptitude of, if it's done right, to hear and be able to identify sequences and patterns in music. So I won't go into that, but in a nutshell, and to end this video, early years music approaches are all of those that are the most significant in the world and the mostly used. Of course, there will be someone in South America or in Africa or North America or Canada who will have a methodology. There's loads, but these are the most prominent in the industry. And if you are a music teacher, you would have come across that in your training, as have I. Any questions, please let me know, and don't forget to share this video if you find it useful. Now, we have an approach which simplifies all of these. So instead of thinking, oh, which one shall I choose? I often speak to so-called practitioners of each one of those. So an Orff practitioner, Kodaly practitioner, a Dalcroze practitioner, Suzuki practitioner, and every single one of them says to me they're not complete. They don't cover everything I need to teach the children. They don't cover because there are a lot of discrepancies and kind of issues that are lacking in each one of them. So these three perspectives that we created inside of Marine Moon Music look at simplifying the process that anyone can do in very simple terms and in a very streamlined manner of looking at a piece of music or listening to a piece of music or singing a piece of music using the music monomodal learning method, which I've created over, you know, probably the last 6 years. And in simple forms, it means that we are going to narrow and focus, as the name suggests, on one single perspective when we are looking or exploring a piece. So it could be firstly from the body, so how we react and move and flow and the weight through space, how we think about what we're listening, okay, so all the meaning and understanding of the child, and how does it feel to the child? So, in simple form and very quickly, the three perspectives that form the monomodal learning method or approach are hinged on these three aspects. And of course, they're interrelated, they complement each other. And of course, the child leads the process, but we need to have a structure. Otherwise, we're all over the place. And if you have taught music, you know what I'm talking about. You can become too creative, too flowing in your approach, and then you don't actually observe progress in each one of these areas. And very simply put, physical and spatial approach of the body about showing what you can hear. Can you tap the beat? Can you show me how the rhythm pattern goes, how the sequence goes? Does it stop and start? Can we jump to this sound? Can we sing to this one? Can we flow to this sound? Can we point at parts of our body where we can hear certain words from the music? So it's the physical and spatial embodiment of what you can hear. The second element, and it doesn't have to be in this order, it's about feeling and emotion. So, what do we feel about this piece of music? How does it make me feel? How does it make me kind of think about it? Okay, so it's about the feel about it. Do I like it? Do I not like it? And why? Does it have a part that I like more than the other? Okay, thinking and communicating. So, from the mind, a child is encouraged to express how are they going to think about the child. Can we think about a situation where we can hear this? Maybe what's the message of the song? Are they singing outside? Are they singing inside? Is it bedtime? Are we thinking about sleeping? Are we thinking about moving? Are we thinking about collaborating? So these are the three aspects. And without tiring you too much, and in a simple format, it ends by once you choose the approach of the three perspectives, you then go into the key musical elements of what you're teaching, which means you can then go in sequence and dive into the rhythm and the beat. And of course, the pattern, the rhythmic pattern, you can go into the tone and the pitch. Okay. Then you go into the speed of the movement, okay, fast and slow, medium and very, very fast. Then you go into the volume, okay, and then the contrast, which goes into textures, dynamics, the sentencing, how it goes, how it ends and begins. So I hope this was useful for you. Thank you so much for watching. If you found value, you think someone can benefit from listening to what I've just showed you and the graphs and the kind of structure and the thinking behind it, please do share. We are on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, we're everywhere. There's no way we can miss us. So, any questions, please do approach me. I'm always willing to have a chat, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you for being here.